Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. My name is Brandy Lesperance, and I'm the Specialist of Partnerships and Community Development here at the Accelerator Center. First of all, wanted to give a big thank you to our sponsor, Artemis Canada, for making this event possible. I'd like to welcome Aaron Schnorr, practice leader at Artemis Canada, to the virtual stage to introduce our speakers.
Morning, everybody. Like Brandy said, my name is Aaron Schnorr, and I'm a practice leader here at Artemis Canada, and we're excited to be part of the conversation today. For those of you who don't know us, Artemis Canada is an executive search firm usually headquartered in Waterloo, Ontario, and we partner solely with tech companies to find the executives you need in order to make it to that next stage of growth and across the organization. And we're excited to be joined by both the Accelerator Center's very own CEO, Jay Krishnan, and founder and CEO of Enabling Adaptations, Sabrina Adair. Sabrina Adair is a practicing occupational therapist and a passionate advocate for parent empowerment. She's a mom of 4 beautiful children who have taught her patience, perseverance, and compassion, that we're all wonderfully unique individuals with our own unfolding stories. Sabrina's experience working with children has inspired her to drive for innovation and interprofessional collaboration. In 2019, she founded Enabling Adaptations, a private online therapy company focused on helping parents and caregivers to find ways to effectively understand and communicate their child's needs in order to create positive environments where children can reach their greatest potential. Sabrina is an award-winning entrepreneur and shares her successful approach to improving children's lives at speaking engagements, parenting workshops, and more. She's an author with her new book, Understanding a Child the Occupational Therapy Way, which its release date is coming up, October of 2021. And without further ado, let's bring both Jay and Sabrina onto the virtual stage.
Hi, everybody.
Hi, Aaron. Thank you, Aaron. Hi, Sabrina. Good to see you here.
Nice to see you too.
Awesome. All right, let's get right to it. So firstly, congratulations on the journey of being an entrepreneur, but also the book. It's not every day that you come across an author, let alone an entrepreneur and an author and a mom. So congratulations to you.
Thank you so much.
It looks like you're juggling 3 full-time jobs. So tell us, how do you do it?
You know what? It comes to organization, balance, and setting priorities, right? It's just like every other entrepreneur that's out there. You have to set what is important for you and for your business, know your vision, know your mission, know your why, and make sure that you are setting those goals and priorities as such.
Yep, makes sense. Easier said than done, I'm sure.
Yeah, it is.
Can you tell us the story of your entrepreneurial journey? How did you get started? What inspired you to go after this problem?
So being an occupational therapist, for those of you who don't know what an occupational therapist is, we always get confused because the term occupation is in there, and that often to people means your job. But if you think about occupational therapy, occupation is actually anything that you need to do as a person, so as a human being. So as adults, our occupation, yes, is our job, but our occupation is also to be able to get dressed, to feed ourselves, to do our normal daily activities, right? To go be a soccer player or a baseball player. Those are all part of our occupations as people. So when it comes to children, their occupation is going to include school, is going to include their play, is going to include the things that they need to do every day. So I've been an occupational therapist for over 18 years, and I've worked a lot with families and children. And we often, what I've noticed over the years working in the schools and working in the community, is that we focus so much on one part of a child when there is a huge, when the child is made up of a lot of different parts, right? So if we focus on just their ability to function at school, we miss the rest of it when they're home or their leisure activities. And as I was working with children, I realized that there was a gap in the ability for a therapist to communicate with parents, or for parents to be able to communicate with therapists to be able to learn. And I would meet with a child once a week. I would do, different activities with them, and there would be very little carryover to be able to take home to the parents. And so there was a little bit of this gap where I thought, how could we more effectively help children to be able to function in all the environments across the board and be able to communicate their needs to other people? And one of the key factors in this, when I was going through all the, your analysis of the situation, was like the key person that actually has the most contact with the child is actually the parent or the caregiver, or the teacher as well. And so if you invest a little bit more into that population, then you can effectively help the children. And then I thought about my own life as a mom of four children who have very diverse needs. And I thought about my life and how difficult it would be if I had to go to, different locations for different appointments and be able to, meet different people. How difficult it was. So I wanted to figure out a way that I could streamline it so that it would take away the barriers for parents to be able to reach out, right? Lots of parents have jobs, have, commitments that they need to do. And so this is where the technology came into it. We all have access to technology. How can I create an environment where parents or caregivers or teachers in their limited time in their day reach out effectively? And so I created this online portal that now parents can find somebody, can chat with somebody in a shorter block of time, created a pathway so that parents can learn all the information about their children. They know their children in the best. And so, working through some of the stuff, and then it gives them the ability to then go back and work with their child, discover things that they may not have understood before. And then we work through it as a partnership together. And so creating this online technology version was the goal of the company. And then to expand it in a way that now that technology is created a more or less no boundaries for people, you can now connect with therapists that specialize in the areas that your child may or may not be limited in. So that's the long story of the.
No, it's a great one. Oftentimes, when you hear about the entrepreneurial journeys of various folks, generally you tend to think of technology, right, or a tech entrepreneurial story. Once in a while, you come across folks like yourself who come from a different realm and use tech as an enabler to sort of complete that journey. How difficult was it for you to, number one, embrace tech, and secondly, to find the right set of people to build it?
So the challenge is that because I am not tech, I rely so much on other people. So it's a huge learning curve. So this is where I hope in the future, and I know that there's a lot of development coming between crossing the bridge between healthcare and technology. Healthcare has not always been tech focused. And so when I was trained as an occupational therapist, over 20 years, then there was no emphasis on technology or how to build your practice through technology. So my hope is that in the future that is created. So it's been challenging because that's not my area of focus. And then the people that are really focused on technology often don't have the healthcare aspect of it. So finding people in technology that really understand the limitations of the healthcare world, how to bridge the gap between them, understanding the barriers in terms of your accountability and, all your restrictions with working as a provider, it makes it challenging. So I've had to use some of the platforms that have already been in existence because of the amount of hoops that you have to jump through to offer services online, from a privacy protection and things like that. The storage of the information has to be in certain places. So I've really had to work with companies that are already existing, that have it developed, in order to start to build the company up. And my goal is to eventually get to a point where I can then build my own platform and create some of the AI technology that intertwines into this to be able to help parents have a more streamlined experience.
Got it. And as you embrace the journey of tech, did you ever think of getting on board a tech co-founder?
I had really considered it. The challenge is that the passion behind my company really comes from the heart of being a parent with children with needs. Right. And so to find a tech founder, or find somebody in tech that is passionate about this area, because it's not going to be as fast moving as some of the other technology areas. It's not going to be as fast moving as some of the needs. So this is more, to me, is more of a long-term investment, because I know that we can see it in our children right now. We can see the challenges that kids are having, right? They're putting a lot of money and emphasis into helping kids with mental health. Eventually it's going to come around that we need to not just change the environment for the children, we need to help the parents and the caregivers around them. So it's not going to be as quick. And I think that's where I've run into the problem, is that people that are interested in the tech have not wanted to necessarily be in it for as long. And so I've really had a challenge with that part of it.
Got it. You bring up an interesting point, right? Which is that of flipping the switch to turn on scale. We over the last, decade or so, the emphasis to scale a company very rapidly and get into blitzscale mode has been quite high. Arguably, 2 years ago, I think things changed a bit after companies were starting to make losses, etc. Given that you come from a realm which has a bit of a, if I may say so, a much nobler cause than some of the other tech startups that are out there, do you ever feel the pressure to scale, or the other way around? Do you ever feel that you're being left behind if you don't scale?
100%. So I have met with investors. I have met with a number of venture groups and talked about my business. And one of the responses that has been is that I can't scale quick enough and I don't have the big enough return. And my emphasis is the investment in now would actually build me to a point that I could scale, and I could actually scale worldwide. Children are everywhere in the world. With children come parents and caregivers. So this is not just a local problem. This is a worldwide issue that needs that parents need support. This can be offered in lots of languages. It can be offered in lots of different cultural emphasis. It's not just but it's a longer term game. And one of the things is that the pressure is if you can't scale quick, we're not interested. And so that's where I've run into the fact that I can't get the venture backing for it to be able to emphasize to them that it could be a longer game, but again, that's where I've run into that boundary or the problems.
Yeah, and I'm going to put it out there, right? And hopefully it doesn't come across the wrong way. Are you being selfish by not scaling, in the sense that maybe there's a, this is truly a global phenomenon, like you put it out there, right? And is it in the world's interest to see you scale this so that the problems, the solutions that can solve these problems get multiplied?
Oh, and I would love to scale, but I'll be honest with you. One of the concerns right now is actually the mindset. So I've met with a lot of politicians, national, like Canada politicians, and just to even scale nationally, like across Canada. And one of the concerns is that it's a change not only, so my company, it's a need for sure, but it's a mindset shift as well. So our focus right now is to provide services for the end user. So Canada invests a lot of money in children with mental health, but the money is going to children's programs. It's not going to the parenting programs. And so when I say to them, I think that the investment should come to the parents to be able to invest in the parents, then I hit a lot of walls and a lot of boundaries. So scaling, for me, it's more of, I've been hitting a lot of walls. I've been having to advocate a lot for the fact that it needs to be the investment in the parents and caregivers and teachers that are then investing in the children. So scaling is not necessarily because I'm hindering it. It's because when I talk to people, they say, no, we need to put more money into the children. And so, yeah. So that's where I think it changes a little bit in terms of the scalability. I have the ability to grow really fast. I have the ability to add on endless amounts of people. But I just, when it comes to the funding sources or being able to, and this comes to who's willing to pay for this versus who's willing to invest in it, there's been a lot of boundaries with this.
Yeah, I can imagine. That's an interesting perspective that you bring, because a lot of folks would have, looked at that value chain and figured out, like you said, that the audience is on the left side. Caregivers, that's where the money is, whereas your focus is towards is much more targeted and where the impact is, right? So as an entrepreneur, how do you find a balance between impact and return on investment?
I think that's the hardest thing. I think the mindset that I have is that if you knock on enough doors and you get, so you have to change the mindset of people that are on the highest level, right? So healthcare industry, I'm targeting insurance companies. I'm targeting, like in our environment where people are not used to paying for healthcare out of pocket, that becomes a barrier. So talking to insurance companies is where I'm trying to get it so that insurance companies can then not make it the barrier for parents to feel that they can access it, right?
Right.
The states has very different rules and regulations between who can practice and where they can practice, right? So we need to create we need to figure out one system and then work to the next system, right? Europe has a very different barriers for that, right? To go into different countries takes a lot more, but we have to create it in one way. So talking to insurance companies, getting the higher levels to understand it, I think is most important, where I have to spend all my time and energy.
Right. Yeah, makes sense. We'll come back to this topic. It's an interesting one. One thing I did want to touch upon before I lose track of it was the concept of work-life balance. Having been an entrepreneur before, as much as there is respect for work-life balance, I never found it. I still haven't. Is there such a thing in your world?
No. Do you know what? To be honest, there's not such a thing as work-life balance. There's a thing called priorities and setting those priorities. And one of the things in the book that I wrote, which was Understanding a Child Occupational Therapy Way, is not so much that you need to necessarily change the balance, is that you need to understand what your environment is right now. So as a parent, I know what I can take on and I know what I can't. So yes, maybe I could have scaled my business a little bit faster and done a little bit more. But during the pandemic, with my 4 kids at home, trying to teach them, my priority became my kids, because that is the here and now, right? I still scaled my business. My business has still grown year over year. I've still been able to invest in a lot. I've written the book during the pandemic, because this has given me the opportunity to get a seat at the table. And I think for every entrepreneur, right, it's about setting up those priorities and making forward progress. So not necessarily the work-life balance, but my priority number 1 is my kids and my family, right? And then secondary is my business.
Right.
And if it takes me 2 extra years to get where I need to go, but I end up building these children that are going to be successful human beings in the future and support an environment where, they're the future. So that's where the investment needs to come. So yes, work-life balance isn't there. I often have late nights, early mornings, right? We do it when we can. But I also set the priority that, over the winter, I wrote the book. That became my priority, because that's going to, like I said, give me the seat at the table to have these conversations with people that I may not have been able to get into before.
Right. It's pretty commendable that you pulled it off. And here's our window to tell the folks that where can we get your book?
Oh, I brought it with me just so everyone can see it. It is actually pre-sale on Amazon right now. You can get it pre-sale on Indigo. It's being released October the 22nd. If you're in the States, you can get it at Barnes & Nobles. So it is. It will be, and you can get it through the publishing house, Routledge Publishing, as well.
Awesome! Congratulations.
Thank you.
That's phenomenal that you've actually written a book in the middle of this. Which brings me to the concept of one's culture, right? What culture did you go out setting when you started the company, if at all you had that in mind? And over these years, has it changed? So because I'm living it, and I think this is different from entrepreneurs who create a product for somebody that in their mind is their avatar, right? So I am the avatar. I'm the person that I'm creating this for. So I created this company with me in mind, right? So when I was, trying to figure out how to embed this into life and to do these kinds of things, I wanted to create a culture that was going to meet the needs of people like me on both sides of the platform. So the people that work for me, and so for a while I had a few different people that, needed to fit this career into their life with their kids, because their kids also have needs. And so the flexibility to understand, okay, I can meet parents all different times of the day. Because it's technology, it doesn't shut off. Because you're at home, it doesn't shut off. But there are going to be parents that are going to be like them that need to meet between 7 and 9 at night. And so having the flexibility to have hours that can move according to the person's needs, then it also has the ability to be on the other side, that then parents who have jobs that maybe are 7 to 7, right? Their shift work at the hospital, or they can take lunch breaks, or they can only meet on the weekends.
we have that, it ends up matching with the parents, what the parents need on the other end. So the culture I created was to try and understand that everybody has a story coming into it from both sides, as the therapist, as the parent, and that these stories are going to need to be met where people need to be. And I think that's made it the ability, because I know what it's like to be on both sides. I think that's made the culture of the company a little bit, I don't know, like more of an understanding company.
Yeah. It makes sense. And there's got to be, a subconscious thought as you go about hiring as to how important, how adversely or in your favor culture gets affected, right? So how do you go about hiring? What do you do over and top of looking for the objective traits, the subjective characteristics that are very difficult to evaluate in an interview, and yet not tarnish the culture? How do you go about doing that?
It's interesting, because I have not actually had to look for people. People have looked for me. So I have a list of therapists that want to work because of the environment that I've set up, the flexibility, and they also have worked in the industry long enough to recognize the same needs that I recognize. So they recognize that they've been working with kids for a long time, and that they feel that they really want to invest in the parents, because it's almost like a broken record sometimes working with kids, because they leave our session and they go home and nothing changes. Right. And so investing. And then I've streamlined it in such a way that the actual program that parents actually go through is so streamlined that we're releasing soon an online course that parents can now take coming into the program, so that parents come with the same knowledge. So everybody kind of starts at the same, which then leads up to the therapists know what knowledge the parents have, and those therapists, as long as they have their have had experience working with kids, they can often take on the clients successfully.
Yep, makes sense. What about impact? Who's impacted you the most? Is there someone that you look out to, or have had an interaction with, that fundamentally changed the direction in which you grew your business?
I don't know if it's for the better or for the worse. There are a lot of people that have come through on my journey as an entrepreneur, and I've done a few accelerator programs in all over, a few online programs. And it's interesting, because I recognize that everybody has their own story. You have your own story. The way you were brought up, the way that you were raised, the environment that you're in is going to affect your perception of my business, right? As is every single person that I meet with. So everybody has these backgrounds, these ideas, these great, pieces. And so they all see the world a different way. And so what I've done is it's really helped me to understand how I need to develop my business by seeing how somebody else sees my business. And then asking the questions of why do you look at it that way? So what about my company makes you think that? And I think it hasn't been necessarily one person, but it's been a compilation of all the people that I've run through that really have refined my business and actually made it into what it is today. Right. So to be able to focus on, it's increase my clarity of my company. It's increased my focus. It's increased the direction I want to go in. Right. But it's also made me see what I'm capable of doing. And I think it's also given me a tougher skin, to be honest, because I've also had to justify a lot more of what I do. Because again, I haven't, and this is where I hope that in the future I can change this. I have not met an entrepreneurial occupational therapist that has been a high level in tech. So I've never not had somebody that's in my field that truly understands my field to be able to actually understand what I'm trying to accomplish.
Interesting.
I've met a lot of tech people that know where the tech world can go.
Right.
But from adding in that personal, like you can't take the personal touch out of a therapy session. There's a whole bunch of mental health components, but it's very different than occupational therapy. So that's where I would say it wasn't one person, but it was a compilation of a lot of people.
Yeah, that's fairly powerful given what we do, right? So, one of the beauties of being in an incubator / accelerator is the element of collisions. And to your point, there's no such thing as a script to entrepreneurship. But the beauty of these collisions is that you run into entrepreneurs who've at some point been there, done that before, regardless of which sector or stage or domain they're in. And therein lies the learning of, hey, that's great experiential learning. I don't need to go through that failure. I pick it up based off of somebody else that I run into at the water cooler or at a conference or at an event, etc. So one of the comments that's in the chat was from one of the mentors. So if you could just go back 2 years, when you got to the Jumpstart program and you just entered the AC, what would you have done differently then versus now?
I think that with my, that's a tough one. I think when I go back, if I were to go back 2 years, I think I would have started out with increasing the clarity of my vision and my mission even more than I did originally. I think that I got skewed a little bit on the pathway to maybe advertising and maybe not necessarily going down different paths that maybe didn't lead me to where I wanted to go. And so I think that would have been is really focusing on the clarity of that. To be honest, I don't know if I would have gotten there in that first few months because I was just so overwhelmed with all the things I had to accomplish. But I think through the process of writing the book, and not saying that everybody has to write a book, but writing that down as it almost is like a manual for my company, my book, because that formed the clarity of this is where we need to go. And after that, I finished my book back in January. And after that, I really had hyper focus on the company and the drive for that. So I wish I kind of had that 2 years ago, because if I had that and then entered the AC, I would now I would have the momentum that I know exactly what I want. And I would be able to really harness the energy of all the mentors a lot better than where I was 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. It does.
It's almost like they should write a memoir going into your program, and so that you understand it.
Yeah, no, I was just thinking to myself, half jokingly, maybe the mental note to self is, come write a book and then we'll let you in.
Well, but this is the thing. And do you know what's so interesting is that there was such a gap in, I think, you only get a certain amount of time with all the mentors. And so in that time, I didn't have enough time to fully express what I wanted, what I was trying to accomplish. And so they only got small tidbits of what I was trying to accomplish. But now I can be like, hey, read my book and then come talk to me. And then you'll know exactly. I have so many people that have read the book already that said, I didn't know you did that. I didn't know that's what you did. I didn't know that that's what your focus was. I didn't know that's what occupational therapists do. Right. And so now I feel like people would understand me a bit better and understand my trajectory of my company.
Yeah. You bring up an interesting point, which is, and you'll get this, and most of the audience members who are entrepreneurs will get it. And it's very difficult to explain to folks who are not entrepreneurs. The ideology of trying to solve a fundamental problem is one thing, but then waking up every single day and looking at every single thing around you as a problem that can be solved, and it becomes inherent to your DNA, right? It's a very, very entrepreneurial thing. And I guess to your point, therein lies not just the opportunity, but the challenge to filter out the signal from the noise. Because there's so much noise out there, right? And clearly you've done it by writing a book and precipitating those thoughts. But if you were to give advice to entrepreneurs to filter out some of that noise, what would it be?
I think one of the key things is if you are trying to solve a problem for people, you need to really talk to the people that need that problem solved.
Yeah.
Right? So if you think it's a problem and from the outside it looks like a problem, you need to understand from their perspective why it's a problem. Right? So so like you see the grocery carts at the grocery store where you can, check out now as you're shopping, you can check out into your cart. Well, that's a technology, but the gap was, people didn't want to wait in line when they go.
Mm-hmm.
But is it really solving the problem of making things faster, right? And all these things. So you're talking to the people about why, right? What is it that is slow at the grocery store? For me, I understood because I was that parent that I don't have time. Like as an entrepreneur, I don't have time to go to appointments. I don't have time to pick up my kids and bring them to appointments. I do because they're a priority. But I was living it to be like, this needs to be easier. And then when I meet with parents who say, I can only meet you at 6 o'clock because I work till 5 and I can't take any more time off. When you hear that enough times, then you're like, what if I offer this at 7 o'clock at night? And they're like, oh, would you? That's fantastic. Like, so I have lived it. I have experienced it on both sides. And so for entrepreneurs that are trying to solve a problem for other people, if you haven't lived it and you don't experience it, you need to really get in with a group and you need to do that research from their perspective. Because what shocked me was that it wasn't always, it's not always what you think it is.
Yeah.
Right? And even from the outside looking in, everybody has a story of why things can't work for them. And you need to understand that story to solve that problem.
Very true. I think specifically tech entrepreneurs have this issue, right, where they fall in love with the product, not necessarily knowing if there's actually a market for it. And like you said, unless you get out there and talk to potential customers, you really don't know if this is going to be a thing that the world needs, let alone scaling it. I mean, that's a different conversation for another day. So in your world today, right, where you stand, how much time do you spend between forward-looking roadmap strategy versus fires that you have to put out on a daily basis?
I think I am almost probably 95% forward-looking, trying to figure out where that door is open just a crack, even a window has like a little, like I can stick my fingers in. Like I am constantly looking at opportunities, right? I jump onto any opportunity. Literally, I was in the paper on Sunday. I got a call on Friday that they want to interview me about the book. I went and had my interview on Sunday. All of a sudden, I was recognized by another hospital that I have been trying to get into to talk to them. And I was recognized by them because somebody read the paper.
Oh, nice.
Right. So it's one of those things. And then all of a sudden I have people reaching out from that population that I was trying to get in by knocking on the door at that hospital. And meanwhile, now I got in through the newspaper to get an article. And right. So see how you just keep jamming your fingers into. So it's forward looking to say, what will impact more people? What can I reach out to? What podcast can I be on? What newspaper can I try and get into? What, things can I get in the world that are going to be outwardly? So I've been on CTV News. I've been on CP24, right? Just getting my name and the information that I have out there. So people recognize occupational therapy. People recognize me. But again, CP24, I had people calling me from British Columbia saying, I saw you on the news, right? CTV National was, right? So our CTV News Network. And again, it's those little fingers into different places that I think I'm always forward looking. What opportunities do I have to move this out there and get the message out? Yeah.
You brought up a couple of points there. I wanted to ask you about Scoodlebox. Is that a byproduct of what you do, or is it the other way around? Is it a beachhead into people coming onto your platform?
So originally my goal was to make it so parents buy kid things for kids all the time. So when I originally did all my analysis, doing a 360 of the environment, like looking at everything that's coming in, parents had said in the surveys that I had put out that they wanted to have tangible products that they could work on with their kids, because to them, that's actually a comfort thing. So having physical products, because you don't have to talk to somebody. They would rather the products than they would the person. So I've created this Scoodlebox as a product line that was going to be delivered to people's homes to be able to offer a way for them to learn how to use standard products with their child, depending on the child's needs. So for instance, if you got a product, it would have 4 different levels of how you could work on it, depending on your child's ability to, like, you know, use their fingers, or, you know, if they didn't have great grip, how could you build their grip strength, so on and so forth. And so I was hoping that that was going to then be the entrance point for a lot of people to then learn about the service side of the industry, like, right? So then brings them onto the tech platform. What ended up happening, it ended up flipping, and the service part of it ended up then recommending the box, because people didn't understand fully how to use the box, because they didn't understand how to work with their children.
Right.
So they had hoped that the box would be something that they could just hand to their children. Well, this is the problem in life, is that our kids need that work with their parents. But parents wanted the quick fix of, here's something that's going to help you get better, not realizing that they needed to be involved in working with them on it. So now it's flipped around, and the service now offers the Scudo box. And I've taken away the subscription part of it, because the specific skills that the parents need to help their children with, now I have the ability to offer them the products that can help them with those skills.
Makes sense.
Yeah, and from a product industry in Canada, it's a very, very different. It's very different to offer a product line in Canada than it is to offer tech services in Canada. Right, the regulations are different. The shipping is atrocious in Canada. Right, our delivery systems across, like, Alberta, Saskatchewan. Right, I had people northern BC to get products to northern BC. Right, it is very expensive. Very different than, so I had a huge population in the States that was buying the products. When it came to COVID, cross-border shipping became an issue. Right. So then I looked at doing some, filling in from the States, getting them to fill the boxes in the States. But everybody became so limited at their ability to they didn't have enough space. They didn't have enough workers. Like, it just became lots of issues. So I changed I changed it over COVID to meet the needs. Got it.
Tell us a little bit about what next. Where are you headed next?
Well, I'm actually I really hope that this, to be honest, that this book that's coming out in October, when people read it, it's going to expand the pathway a little bit more. Because I think one of the key things is, I not only want to create this tech platform for people to be able to communicate, but I've also just realized over these last 3 years how much we need to really invest in our next generation. And I feel like if I can create a path that's going to open the door for other technology platforms in this industry, in the healthcare world, if I can be that voice that's going to direct people to tell them how beneficial technology can be for parenting, for working with kids, then that could be my mission in life. I want to have the background behind it with my platform, but I want to see this grow, and I want to see it become worldwide, that it becomes something that's that other people are going to start making, these meeting these needs of these parents, because I'm really, to be honest, concerned about what our future looks like for these kids, especially the kids coming out of this pandemic. Right. More and more. Yeah. So I hope that in 10 years from now, you will see my company all over the world. But I also hope that at that point, I have lots of competitors that are doing something differently, that are, that I've helped pave the way for them, so that our kids are going to be phenomenal human beings that are going to create like amazing masterpieces in this world. Right. Yeah. And maybe that's, I don't know, mystical thinking, but I hope that that's what I leave behind.
Yeah, it's interesting how you walked us through that answer. As a byproduct of technology, I was thinking it's going to be something along the lines of, hey, I built a marketplace, I'm going to make it a platform. The platform's going to have machine learning that allows for the right set of kids to be matched with the right set of therapists, et cetera, and eventually go global. It's interesting how you had such a different perspective.
Well, and that's part of my 10 years from now. I hope it's worldwide doing exactly that. Right. I have it actually mapped out. Like, I have everything mapped out. Sure. But at the same time, the amount of walls that I've hit and the amount of resistance I've had from just trying to help parents better understand their kids and help their kids, I just think it's phenomenal in this world that how much resistance can be in just that area of life.
Got it. Yeah.
Right. And to me, that boggles my mind as an entrepreneur, to think about all the people that are entrepreneurs themselves that have kids, and you
Right.
think, if we're not investing in our future with our kids, then what value is that going to be?
Yeah. Yeah. That's a fireside chat for another day. Which I think
Yes.
there's tons of stuff to cover on that one. When I started as an entrepreneur, this is a question that often comes up, especially around the university, right? Is there a right time? And I think a lot of times that question gets asked not with the intent to build a company that's solving a problem, although it's not stated that way. I think oftentimes it comes from a place where they are looking to raise funding without realizing that funding is just a means to the end.
Yeah.
Right. So if you're straight out of college, you're reasonably untethered to a lifestyle. Potentially, arguably, you don't have family. It may be easier to raise capital. Whereas, if you're further along the line, like in your case, you have 4 kids, it's difficult, right? It's the elephant in the room where investors potentially will not ask that question, but the underlying question that they want to ask is, well, how much time are you going to devote to this? Should this be your only baby, or is this your 5th baby, right? And there is no right or wrong answer. In my case, when I was an entrepreneur right out of college, fortunately that company did okay. But much later, I was able to learn and bank on my experience as I built my company, specifically on things like culture, who to hire, what not to do, how do you bring the right set of management principles and processes on board. And I say all of that to ask you one question, which is, what would be your advice as far as people out there looking to be entrepreneurs, if they're in their 20s or 30s or 40s? Is there an age when to do it and when not to do it?
I don't think there's a right age, and I don't think there's a wrong age. I think that there has to be, and I think sometimes when you don't know enough, you take more risks than you would if you do know more.
Sure.
Right? Because you haven't, like you said, you have nothing to lose. I think if I went back to my 20-year-old self when I graduated from school, I don't think I would have understood what is needed actually in this company. I could have created this platform, and it would have been, something very surface level and not necessarily in depth. But I actually want this to impact parents. So I want it to be what it needs to be. So I guess you can create one level, but I think the experience and knowledge of living in the world, going to culture and going to who you're going to hire, like hands down now, I can read through people within, a half an hour conversation. When I was 20 years ago, I was so intimidated by people that I wouldn't necessarily be able to read them the way. But I have seen and heard and been around enough to know that whether you're a fit or not.
Right.
I think that knowledge. I also think that me as a 40-year-old self, I think that I also have technically 41 today because it is my birthday.
Okay, wow. Should have started on that note.
So me as my 41-year-old self also knows what I am driven to do and what I want to do. And I didn't have that clarity back when I was 20. So I would have been skewed a lot more by the people and investors that I want. Investors have told me what they want me to become. Investors have told me what they would invest in. But it is so far off on the trajectory where I want to go that it doesn't align yet with and I am also not I'm scared of the answer no. And I think a lot of new entrepreneurs are scared of, getting that no, and they will maybe change their trajectory based on what people say.
Sure.
I'm not scared of no because I know what I want and I know where I'm going and I know what I see as the future. And I'm not willing to compromise. And I think that confidence in myself, I didn't have 20 years ago.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you, as your 20-year-old self, when you first started your entrepreneurial journey, yes, you did well with your company, but you probably zigzagged a little bit according to what people told you to get you where you went.
Absolutely.
Right. So, and I totally could, and I could throw in the towel. I could make modifications to my platform and I could make it like other people's, and I can make it better and more competitive and so on. But it would take away from what I really, my line of sight, which is one area of focus. Right.
Yeah.
And I've been told over and over by a lot of mentors, especially at the AC, was to really find that niche market, because there's only certain people that do what you do and that do it well.
Right.
I mean, there are a lot of online platforms that connect providers to with services, but there's not necessarily the same with the understanding with children and parents to be able to do that focus. And so, again, I think my 20-year-old self would have been skewed a lot more than what I am now. And I'm not.
Yeah. I was very clear in my 30s, actually, which is to get married to my then fiance and figure out this balance between equity and income. She brings the fixed income, and I go dabble around, like you said, zigzag a bit, figure my entrepreneurial self out. Fortunately, it worked out, and I hope she's not listening if she is. And like you said, right, everybody to oneself. There's really no one script that fits all. Let's open it up to questions. We have 9 minutes remaining. It's a great opportunity for folks listening in to chime in and ask questions if they have any. And if they don't, I have tons of questions. But let's hear from the folks. Or let's keep it going. Hopefully, if questions pop up, I'll put it out there. A while ago, someone had told me it's not who you know that matters; it's who they know. So, right. So, has there been somebody who's significantly influenced you as far as the business decisions are concerned, which led you down this path? Not necessarily a role model, but someone who tweaked your business, someone who helped you with the first contact, the first customer, something along those lines.
No, and not in this business. And I think that's where I'm still waiting for that person to help me to connect me with that right person that's going to really, you see these entrepreneurs all the time. They're an overnight success, right? And you hear all these stories about all of a sudden their business just jumped exponentially. And then if you look back at that person's life journey, you think about Airbnb and you think about all these other big companies. He had been working for years and years, and then all of a sudden it was one, you saw it grow exponentially, right? Yep. So I feel like I'm doing a lot of the background journey on this, and eventually it's going to hit the right person who's in the right position to be able to exponentially grow this. Have I met that person? No. But have I met people that have really made me feel that this is the right journey for me to be on? 100%. Every single parent that I meet that I have significantly impacted that child's life, every teacher that I work with that has significantly impacted her classroom, everybody who has read my book that reads it and thinks, I am going to see my child in a different light. That's when I know that I am on the right journey. That's when I know that I have impacted. That's when I know that my mission and my goal in life is making a difference. Right. So I always think that if I keep going with this over and over again, then I will, hit that right person that's going to then exponentially grow my business. And everybody that I've met, I've interviewed people to build my platform. I've interviewed people all around the world to build the platform, to integrate the AI. And not one single person, they see it from the side of the business of the platform. I can't afford it because I can't get the investors to align with that platform building, but they don't necessarily understand my business at the same time as, they want the business because they want to build the platform, but they don't understand what my purpose in my business. And I think at one point, maybe it's a pipe dream, but maybe at one point it's going to align with somebody in technology that also understands the mission and vision of, like you said before, and then that person will come along. But again, I'm sticking my fingers in a lot of windows, right? And if they slam down, it's still in there, and I get my voice in, and eventually somebody will hear it.
Yeah, kudos to you. I can think of a ton of people who I wish I hadn't met.
There you go.
Yeah, very, very corollary to how the business can change and grow exponentially when you meet somebody, right? But you're right.
But I've also had people that have made me realize, like, other paths that I've tried, like in different areas of business that I've tried that have not been successful. I have met people in those worlds that really reiterate why I shouldn't be in that world, why that's not the direction I should go in.
Yeah, good point. Yeah.
And so when you have those kind of experiences, that really pushes you back to being like, no, this is where the windows and doors keep opening, is in this journey. And that's where I need to be. Right. And I still have my plan. I still have my streamline. I still have my journey of where I want to go and how I'm going to build this. And it's way the heck slower than I ever thought it would be.
Yeah.
But again, I still making forward progress. And as long as I keep doing that, I know I'm on the right path. Right.
On that note, if you were to give 3 or even 1 piece of advice to entrepreneurs not to do, what would it be?
Don't give up. Don't give up when it gets hard. Right. Just reevaluate and realign and talk to more people, because talk to people that, and talk to people that understand you and your business. Talk to people that know, your passion aligns, but then be open to criticism, be open to constructive feedback.
Yeah.
Right. Because I think at some points I was talking to the wrong people. Right. And I think when you talk to the wrong people and you get inspired by them, but you go down that journey, which I spent a lot of money on a lot of things that I don't think necessarily benefited my company at all. But then I realized that there wasn't the clarity in the people I was talking to. They all had good intentions, but you make mistakes like that. And talk about learning from mistakes. You learn from that you're not going to. You have to be able to say no, even though it's a good idea from somebody else's perspective.
Sure. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
I mean, there's some investments that I'm sure you have made too in your past that you're like, maybe that wasn't the best. But you learn from it, you move on. But I would say that that's where you have to be careful who you are accepting ideas from, and have a filter to be able to work through it, right? So understand what you are, the filter that you're using to work through any of the recommendations that people are giving you.
Right, exactly. Absolutely. We're almost out of time. On a parting note, I know for a fact that one trait that every entrepreneur brings to the table every single day is optimism and high energy. Right? Without that, there's nothing, right? Where do you get yours from?
It works out for me fantastically. Is I get my energy from successfully working with people. So I get my energy from having conversations like this with you, to be able to then get the word out a little bit more. I have So these are my little pokes of energy that then I remember why I do this and why I want to keep doing it. Nice. So I actually set myself up so that I have these conversations. And if I can't get it out in the world, I have conversations with people that remind me why I'm doing it. And then, or, my client visits, like if I get to meet one-on-one with clients, I get inspired. And so I think to get energy out of your own business makes it easier to stay in your business and keep going with the business, even when the other parts of it are a bit harder.
Sure.
To be able to understand, what to do, right? So I think that's how I keep my energy. I also keep my energy because I'm with my kids pretty much 24/7. And when I look at them and think about the future I want them to have, it reminds me and also reminds them, like, they see their mom working hard. They understand why I'm working hard. And I also want them to be able to have a future that is better than ours was potentially.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the beauty of working with kids for entrepreneurs is the whole Japanese principle of breaking it down to first principles, right? Why, till there's nothing left, right? You're down at the most common denominator, and that's why you do it. So I can imagine how kids can bring that.
And you just, if you think about, if your product, I always think for entrepreneurs, if your product is not making this world a better place, then why are we making it?
Right.
Right. If it's taking away from what our world needs to be, then is it for the betterment of? and there's lots of things out there that do that.
Sure.
But I also want to make sure that I'm making this a better place. I don't know. Like I said, I try to keep my optimism there, because if you didn't, like, for every entrepreneur, what would you have? But believing that you can change one person at a time, but you can change the world is a good place to be.
Right. Absolutely. Hey, this has been fantastic, Sabrina. Thank you so much for your time. Congratulations on the book, on your journey, and your ability to not just do this and multitask, but also tell us how you do it. So
thank you. I really appreciate you bringing me back to this, and I owe the AC a lot of kudos, because I'm where I am because of them. So thank you.
No, thank you. Thanks a lot.